Hello everyone and welcome back to the SteemTrail Gaming News. Today is the 22nd February 2018. My name is Kralizec and I will be your host for the evening. Well, tonight we got 3 stories for you guys. Sadly, the first story is very bad. Another swatting incident, this time including a 12-year-old kid. But then we're going to take a look at the Overwatch League, which has finally released their code of conduct. And last of all, we're going to take a look at an interesting new game from the Cambridge University, which will teach you how to spot fake news. But let's begin with the bad news of today, which is about swatting. Let me start by saying this. Swatting is bad, dumb, and fucking don't do it, you idiots. Whoever does this deserves to be jailed and preferably raped in jail. It's just a horrible thing to do and nobody ever should do it. But to the actual news. So a Fortnite streamer named Peter Verandy, he's also known as Rolly Lanchers, who was recently pushed a little bit to Providence because of an endorsement by a pretty popular YouTuber named Scissors. He went from slightly under 1,000 subscribers to 120,000 subscribers within, let's say, a week, has found himself as the victim of a so-called prank that is called swatting. If anybody doesn't know by this point, swatting is when you're an idiot and you call to the police that something is happening at a certain place and they send in a SWAT team. On Sunday, the stream of Verandy was interrupted when police showed up at the door, and the police was responding to a claim that one of his viewers made that him and his mother were going to hang themselves. I gotta admit, at least this time they didn't until they hear a gunfire or something like that, so there was a good chance the police didn't come in guns blazing this time. But seriously, why the fuck would you do something as stupid as this? It's just one of the dumbest things I have ever heard about. Like, I still don't get how this is a thing in our community. Our community was supposed to be one of the better ones, one where people do things that make sense and try to protect others. But lately, the gaming community has becoming more and more fucking toxic. And it pisses me off to no end. It's just, it shouldn't be this way. We should treat others with respect. And that doesn't mean, you know, respecting everybody in every circumstance. If somebody's being a jerk, you're obviously allowed to be a jerk to them back. But that doesn't mean you will send the fucking police to their house with a SWAT team. Please, gamers, if you ever even have an idea of doing this, like, yeah, it will be funny as hell. No, it will not be funny. Just remember what happened pretty recently where a person got killed because of this. Killed. And it was a totally innocent man who just got put in the middle of this because somebody had a wrong address. And that can very easily happen again. So please, gamers, don't do this. If you ever hear anybody talking about this, tell them they're fucking idiots and make them stop. Okay, you can see this topic pisses me off to no end. So let's go away from it and take a look at Blizzard's Overwatch League, which has finally released their code of conduct. Well, let's take at some things that are inside the conduct, like I actually have a little bit of a list here. The list is published here on PC Gamer, from which I have news. So some of the things that are here are like, observe the highest standards of personal integrity and good sportsmanship. That's a good rule, though it is insanely vague. Compete to the best of their skill and ability at all times. That essentially means they shouldn't throw matches, and obviously that's a good rule as well. Third, we have comply with all applicable laws at all times. Yeah, don't take drugs, don't rape children, don't steal, etc., etc. I think nobody's surprised that this is part of the code of conduct. Next one is not engage in any activity or practice which brings him or her into public disrepute or scandal. This is the one that is probably the most interesting, as it sort of implies that you have to avoid anything that could be even remotely scandalous, I'd say, or just that could be considered not appropriate in any sort of sense. And in today's world, that's a really hard thing to do. You need to remember that. But obviously I understand why Overwatch League has this as part of their conduct, because, well, they require sponsors to keep the league afloat. You know, running such a league is certainly not a cheap thing. Nobody will argue that it is. And the need for sponsors requires that you at least appear, let's call it, family friendly. Next rule is not engage in any form of harassment or discrimination. I find it very interesting that there is even mention of discrimination, because I would consider discrimination a form of harassment. But in today's culture, the rule there is again understandable, though I will admit I do not like it as much. I would like the rule if it was just don't do any harassment. Then it will be okay, but just because it mentions discrimination, which I personally view as a form of harassment, that makes the rule that slightly appeals to today politically correct culture. The next one is don't place bets on any games, matches, or tournaments involving Overwatch. That's a pretty obvious thing because, well, if you do place any bets, even on matches you're not playing in, you still might have friends, they might feel under pressure, and it will certainly make the match outcome slightly different. And even considering that you could like bet on your own match and then throw it, that would obviously be a really bad thing. And many, not only gamers, but mostly sportsmen have been punished for this behavior. Next rule is don't make any false, defamatory, libelous, or slanderous remarks, comments, or statements. Obviously, this is a rule that essentially in many countries it would actually fall under the rule comply with all applicable laws at all times. So and the thing is, maybe there are some states in America where you can actually slander somebody under the free speech stuff. So that's why it's probably put in there. But let's say here in Europe, in Czech Republic, it would be under the law. And last one, probably most obvious one ever, don't use or attempt to use any bugs or exploits in Overwatch. Yeah, that one is pretty self-explanatory. Don't try to cheat, you know, because cheating is bad, especially if you're trying to be a pro gamer. Not only does that mean you're getting an unfair advantage in something that should be a fair game, you're also sort of promoting that cheating is a good thing. Not necessarily it's a good thing, but it's a thing that can bring you success, and hopefully that shouldn't be really the case, because, well, if we want to be taken seriously as quote-unquote a sport, I don't like the term sport for esports, to be honest, because, well, they aren't really sports. They're competitive games. So if we want to be viewed seriously as competitive games, we need to play fairly. And yes, all of these rules are fairly vague, but that is very often the case when it comes to these sort of rules, because, you know, just you cannot really say exactly everything that people can do, because, well, people can do crazy shit. So they need to be somewhat general, so if something that is somewhat unexpected happens, they could still be punished under this code of conduct. Okay, let's take a last look, or more specifically, on a browser game that is called Bad News and comes from the University of Cambridge. That is not your typical development studio, to be honest, but their game actually seems really interesting. So let me actually read the description. In this game, you take on the role of fake newsmonger. Drop all pretense of ethics and choose the path that builds your persona as an unscrupulous media magnate. but keep an eye on your followers and credibility meters. Your task is to get as many followers as you can while slowly building up fake credibility as a news site. But watch out, you lose if you tell obvious lies or disappoint your supporters. That is a really interesting game. One thing that should be mentioned, the game is actually trying to be politically neutral by including both left-wing and right-wing leaning options and outcomes, and that's a really good thing. Because in today's political climate, the left often tries to accuse the right of being, oh well, the source of fake news all over the place, but the truth is, both the left and the right do produce these sort of news. And this game is actually a very interesting tool that will allow you to learn to fact check, because that's something a lot of people don't really do. And here I might sound somewhat, well, mean to a lot of people, but a lot of people who never went to university were never really taught about the importance of fact checking. You know, it's not only that you check whether the same thing is said on Wikipedia, as, well, many people do these days, because Wikipedia is the God Almighty of knowledge. Sadly, that's not true. It's very easy to edit any article on Wikipedia and put the fake news in there as well. But you should always check the source of the article you're reading, and ideally try to find out more about the source of the source. If you do that, you are generally okay. Sometimes you might have to go even one step further, but again, generally you're going to be okay with going for the source and the source of the source. You don't need to go for the source's source. Man, that sounds horrible. But learning about this, how actually fake news is created, is an interesting way to teach people about the fact that it exists, and exists on both political sides of the spectrum, and that they need to learn to, how to call it, it's not protect themselves, it's more how to burst their echo chambers. Because of social media and the way how social media algorithms work, a lot of people do get stuck in these political echo chambers, where they read only articles that already support their particular view, and they never hear anything from the other side, even if the other side might actually have good arguments. That's why I think actually being in the center is the ideal solution right now. You will read both left-leaning political stories and right-leaning political stories, and in most cases the truth is actually somewhere there in the middle. So the game, again, is named Bad News. It's a browser game. It's available for free. You can just search for it very easily. And I highly recommend you all try it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to make a review of this. So you can go to my main channel and see the review there. Not today, not tomorrow, but I would say until maybe Monday I would probably going to do this review. But with that being said, that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do, please consider giving us a thumbs up here on YouTube and subscribing to our channel. If you are watching this on Steam, maybe you want to give us an upvote and follow our blog. Be sure to leave a comment, as we are always interested in your opinion. Tell me, why do you think people do swatting? Why do they think it's funny? Because I just don't get it. An argument because they think it's funny is not an argument. I want to know why they think it's funny. Do you think swatting is funny? Because to me it just seems ridiculously idiotic. Be also sure to tune in tomorrow for more gaming news. As you can see, I managed to solve most of the issues. I'm going to try to increase the bitrate again tomorrow. I had to lower it for today slightly. But with that being said, that's going to be it for today, guys. See you guys later with more gaming content.